What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down 8 movement tips to dominate your ranked game. So make sure you watch it to the end so that you master all these advanced movement techniques, and then you can incorporate them into your games right away by the end of the video. But the GameLeap website is stacked full of advanced tips and tricks that are guaranteed to help you climb. Whether it's a positional guide, in-depth game sense breakdowns, in-depth Radiant VOD reviews, and much, much more. Check it out in the links down below and be well on your way to climbing the ranked ladder. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Now, the first technique that we have to break down is none other than bunny hopping. And real quickly, let's break down exactly how you can bunny hop, and then we're gonna break down also some practical uses of it in game. Now, bunny hopping is really simple to do. All you're doing is you're running full speed forward, you start to jump, and you time your jumps by pressing either D or A. You go back and forth, jumping forward, D, jump, A, jump, D, jump, A, jump. And as you're doing this, you're moving your screen in the direction that you're jumping, and you're going back and forth, and it creates a jumping motion where you're jumping the second you hit the ground, and you're kind of rocking back and forth as you go forward. Now, with them patching it out in previous patches, you can't use this to jump over slows or anything like that, and it doesn't give you any increase in speed. That's the second thing that you really need to understand. That's not really what bunny hopping is for, but there are still 3 practical uses for bunny hopping. Now, the first practical use is jump peeking. And what you do here is all you're doing is you're bunny hopping, and basically you're using that animation or that momentum to peek around a corner. You don't even have to peek around that corner with your eyes. You just need to look at your mini map. But the reason you bunny hop jump peek a corner is because effectively you're flying yourself around the corner, and if an enemy is opping, they can often hit your feet if they're aiming body level, and you could survive even if they somehow manage to hit you. But more often than not, you're peeking out so little of your body that they're not going to be able to hit you at all. This is a very effective way to scout out oppers or things like that, and it's a way to do it quickly. You get to an objective, you instantly bunny hop jump peek, and you can find out if there's an opper there right away. Now, the next best way to use bunny hopping is just as a mix-up in movement, especially if you are out of LOS or if you're flashed or anything like that. You can bunny hop away because some players are going to have a really hard time hitting you when you're bunny hopping behind natural cover. They're going to have their crosshair ready. It's going to be perfectly head level, and they're going to try to just shoot you as you cross. Maybe you cross through spawn, you cross through CT. They have a tiny little window to shoot you, but if you're bunny hopping, all of a sudden your head hitbox is all over the place, and you might be able to get out right before they headshot you. This is another practical application of bunny hopping, but remember, this is going to give away your location, so only use this as a last-ditch effort if you're just trying to make it behind natural cover and enemies know where you are, and you don't want to just run in a straight line because it's a lot easier for enemies to hit you in the head that way. Now, the last really useful way to bunny hop is actually combining it with Raze's blast pack. You can give yourself an added bit of momentum. You can actually throw out potentially like a blast pack. You can bunny hop into it, let yourself get that momentum, fly in with your ultimate or whatever the case may be, and propel that momentum forward. It can be a way that you really fly into combat, you fly into the action, and you come out of nowhere. Enemies aren't expecting you at all. Now, moving on to the next movement tip that we have to cover incredibly quickly, and it's none other than jiggle peek. We talked about the bunny hop jiggle peeking earlier, but this type of jiggle peeking is different. It's just a simple jiggle peek with your knife out. You're jiggle peeking an edge, and like we said before, you don't have to look with your eyes. You just have to look with your mini map, and it's really simple to jiggle peek. All you have to do is jiggle out, and that's it. You're just whipping out your knife, and you're jiggling out just to where you barely see them on the mini map if they're there. Now, that being said, however, sometimes against better players, what you want to be doing instead is actually just peeking your shoulder. And what you're doing here is you're not even peeking with your eyes. You're just peeking with your shoulder. And you might be asking, okay, what the heck? What does that do? I can't see anything if I'm not popping up on the mini map. Well, enemies will often respond to that with fire. And the problem with jiggle peeking with your eyes is sometimes if an opper has a really close sight to the wall and they think you're gonna jiggle peek, they might be able to shoot you. So if you jiggle with your shoulder out, you're gonna 100% dodge this play. And that is why you do that, especially if you have a strong suspicion that enemies are there, they're pushing up. You can just jiggle peek with your shoulder, try to get a response with some fire, and that's good enough to find out some precious information. Now, the next movement tip that you have to master is peeking at full speed, swing peeking at full speed with no noise. Now, you gotta remember that if you only take a half step, or if you cancel a half step with walking, then you can potentially make no noise during a peek. This can be really powerful when you know someone is there or you have a strong suspicion someone is there and you want to peek them, but if they're not there, you don't want to give information about where you are to everyone around you. So push all the way up to the edge, wherever you want to swing peek, and then you do this where you do that half step, or you do that half step and commit to walking, or you half step swing back and then commit to walking. All you're doing there is giving yourself all the benefits of the peeker's advantage swing peek without giving any of the information away. But you got to remember that you can only do this a half a step. So if you're not close enough to the swing angle, if you're too far from the wall, you're going to end up accidentally making a noise, or you're going to have to walk partial the way through the swing, and you're either going to be like not actually peeking the enemy yet, and you're going to be slow walking and die, or you're going to give away your information to everyone around, and that is definitely not what you want either. So definitely keep that in mind. Go practice this a little bit. It's definitely a technique you need to master if you want to climb. Now, the next big tip that I have for you in this video, and this is a big one involving movement: when do you walk out with your knife? Like, a lot of people wonder, when is the appropriate time to be walking with my knife out over having my gun out and walking? Because of course, when you're walking with your knife out, you're a little bit faster, but of course, you don't have your gun out. So if an enemy's there, you're gonna get killed and swung. So basically, you need to do this in several different situations. You see, if you ever look at pro streams or anything like that, they will do this all the time and they somehow never get killed. So it's no secret how they never get killed. They always follow these three things. The first time that they walk with their knife out is when they know that enemies could hear them from across walls or different things like that, but they also know that no enemies are in their path. Like the path that they're specifically going, whether it's CT or through mid or whatever, they know for a fact no enemies are there, but they don't know what enemies around that could possibly hear them. So that is why they're walking with their knife out. So in their direct path, they're not going to run into anybody, but they don't want to give away that information. Now, the second time that they walk out with that knife is when they know the relative position of somebody, but they really want to cut them off. So they don't know for sure that enemies didn't come to them. They don't want to give off any of that information, but they need to cut off an enemy. They want to set up a flank on an enemy. They tap spike and they're walking around. They know enemies are coming from run direction, but they want to wrap all the way around the flank or something like that. They don't want to give away any audio cue at all, but they do want to route as fast as possible. So remember that there is no perfect scenario when you're going to have that knife out or not out, but also that extra time really can give you a strategic advantage. So definitely pay attention to when pro players are whipping out their knife and they're walking versus not. And you're going to start to see the scenarios in which actually doing so got them a lot of value. Now, moving on to the fifth movement tip to dominate in your ranked games, and this is actually quick scoping. And you might be asking, okay, why is quick scoping a movement tip? Well, the way that Wardell mainly quick scopes is he will actually run up to you like he's running around. He will actually start his counter strafe as he's zooming in his scope. His scope will hit that red dot right as he finishes his counter strafe, and he will shoot. Essentially, you're incorporating that scope animation at the same time that you're incorporating that counter strafe to make it first shot accurate. This is an extremely important skill to master, and it does take a lot of practice. Because how many times have you been running around or you're setting up with an op and you basically start to fire or you start to see that scope zoom in and your shot goes into the ceiling, right? This is because you're not counter strafing correctly in conjunction with the scoping. You're not waiting for the entire pendulum to swing of that counter strafing and making sure your shot is first shot accurate. Because remember, if you see that red dot in the middle, it's always going to be first shot accurate. And that is a crush that you learn at first, but eventually you'll get the feel for it if you try to do this more often. And if you master this, you're going to be able to actually move pretty sporadically and still hit your op shots. That's how you see Wardell always really quickly peek these angles and op people out of nowhere. It's because he mastered this movement and aiming tip. Now, moving on to the next big movement tip that we got for you, and this is none other than 180 flashes. And this is a really important movement tip to get right, but a lot of people just haven't mastered this, and a lot of times even high-level players get this wrong because it's really difficult to execute. The thing that's important about 180 flashes is it's not only important to 180 the flash, but it's also important to re-180 and actually spray the swinging phoenix or whoever it is that actually flashed you. Now, what this requires is for you to have perfect 180s and then also be able to do it a second time. So you got to practice 180s. This is extremely important. Make sure that you have 180s down. You can just practice this in a training room over and over again. 180, 180, 180. And then on top of that, you not only have to 180, but you got to make sure that you instantly reset your aim to where you can 180 back. Sometimes the best thing that you can do if you have a really high sensitivity is you 180 in one direction and then you just 180 back by swiping back to where your mouse pad was, directly back, so then you're right there where you started. Now, something else about doing the 180 though, is you gotta make sure that you're not moving. A big problem that happens is players will 180 and 180 again, but while they're doing the first 180, they're moving their body at the same time because they are not committing to the 180. What they're doing is they want to hide and they want a 180. So what happens is they will 180 and then 180 back, but because they're kind of slightly moving, even if they actually get their crosser on the Phoenix, if the Phoenix is focusing you, he's going to be able to kill you before you could kill him, even if you did the 180 perfectly. So basically, you got to make sure that you're committing to the 180 and you're not going to move at all. You could plant your feet, you 180, and then you just challenge the Phoenix as he swings. As simple as that. Now, that being said though, it has to be premature. You can't just 180 on the dime. It's going to be very hard for you to just basically 180 with no prior information. It's like, yes, maybe you play baseball, but if someone just in public walked up to you and threw a baseball right at your face, are you gonna be able to catch that or dodge that out of nowhere? Maybe, but realistically, probably not. It's gonna be so surprising. So if you're not even thinking about the enemy team's flasher, you don't even understand where they set up or realize that when you are transversing between where you are to open space, like you're transversing that open space, maybe you're pushing up to hookah, right? Maybe you're playing on bind and you're pushing up to hookah, you're on attack, you're going B and you're pushing up to hookah. In that space between where you are and before you get to hookah, you have no natural cover to hide behind unless you hug the left side. If you're pushing up the right side, you gotta realize if there's a Phoenix and he flashes out here, I need to be ready. You need to think about that at every single time. When you're not near natural cover, wherever you are in the center of any map and you know that the enemy flasher is still alive, you always have to be thinking, he might flash at a moment's notice. Am I gonna be ready to commit to this 180? If you practice it, you make sure to commit to it instead of moving or splitting the difference, and you are actively thinking about it, you will convert on these far more and start to get tons of kills, and Phoenixes will be so triggered because you're basically just shutting them down every time they try to make a flash play. Now moving on to more movement tips, but this time about a specific agent, we're gonna talk about Ray's movement tips. And this is a really simple one to learn, but it's really important to master. And it's using your blast pack to take a super wide peek on a known enemy. Now, this is really effective for close peeking an enemy. Like, if an enemy is right around a corner, right, and you know where they are, and they're hiding in a cubby or something, if you use your blast pack to where you throw it on the ground, and you jump to the far left side and blast yourself across the screen, it makes you actually so hard to swing from their perspective. Now, you're gonna have to pre-aim the right side in advance. So basically, the second that you get blasted across the screen and you land, you're already gonna be spraying at the enemy. You're gonna be ready, you're gonna plant your feet, and you're gonna spray at the enemy. But the enemy, you are basically flying across their entire screen. Because they're so close to you and you're pushing up to that angle, you are gonna be swinging so far across, like you might actually end up completely past their crosshair placement, like even to the point where they don't even see you on your screen, because that's how far you push. And this is a really effective strategy if you master it. You see people like Sinatra and Tens do this all the time, so definitely practice it and try to incorporate it in your games if you're playing Rays. Now moving on to the last movement tip that we got for you in this video, and this one is specifically about Jett's ultimate. Now, a lot of people understand, yeah, Jett's ultimate's first shot accurate. Yes, Jett's ultimate is accurate while you're in the air. But a lot of people don't really understand the implications of that. Like, some people are going all in and they're flying in, they're dashing, they're updrafting, and they're hitting people in the air. Yes, that's good, but a way that a lot of high-level players actually use this ultimate is to simply jump peek boxes. I mean, everyone jump peeks boxes with, like, the classic pistol, right? They jump peek a box, they shoot a little bit with the classic pistol. They jump, they shoot a little bit. That's okay. But you can just jump peek boxes, no glide, no nothing. You're just jumping up and you're jump peeking boxes with your primary fire. This is gonna get you tons of kills all over the place. Think about a place like defense split mid. You can easily hide behind that box in mid, jump up over the box, shoot someone, jump up over the box, shoot someone. This can be a way to get a lot of different damage in. It can even be a way that you get a kill because at the apex of your jump, you're gonna have a moment where you float there for a millisecond, you can snap ahead, and enemies are gonna have no time to react to this because it's such an untraditional way to play the game, such an untraditional way to peek the enemy. They're never gonna be prepared for this, and it's incredibly powerful to do. But make sure you're using your primary fire, not your alternate fire. It's going to be very unlikely you're going to connect with alternate fire, just barely peeking them. But I hope you learned some interesting movement tips in this video that can definitely help you in your games. But the GameLeap website is stocked full of in-depth tips and tricks, Radiant tier VOD reviews, in-depth breakdowns of pro players, and much more. Do yourself a favor and go check it out. The link's down below. But that's all we got for you today. Thanks so much for coming by. I'm Coach Mills, and of course, until next time.